They're full of information that relates to social history, the growth and development and change in places, things that we've lost. They're an amazing storehouse of memory.
And so are these for Sydney?
We've specifically selected maps for the exhibition that relate to the City of Sydney.
And what do they tell us about Sydney? What are the many things they tell us?
Well, they start off by showing us that the actual layout of the settlement was determined in part by the tracks and pathways that the Aboriginal people had established in terms of getting to and from places. They show us how Circular Quay changed its shape and its function. It shows us what happened in Darling Harbour when the volume of cargo traffic became so much that the Circular Quay couldn't handle it anymore. Some of them show the sort of heights of buildings, the numbers of business premises, and generally the evolving sort of landscape of the city. Yeah, there is a wonderful map in the exhibition that was produced by David Jones. Its rival Anthony Hordens also produced a similar one, and it was given out to servicemen visiting Sydney on leave during World War II. Well, he needed to know where the newsreels were, where the stores were, where he could go night dancing or take groups of friends to restaurants.
The really early ones, these are put together without the ability to actually look down. You're just on the ground trying to work it out, aren't you?
Yes,
it's not
so
easy.
you know, it's really basically down to your movement on foot with simple measuring tapes and equipment. Compare maps that were produced by drones and other sort of spatial GPS technology. People who made maps by hand did an extraordinary job. There's one particular map which shows the layout of the wharves in Darling Harbour when they attempted to move all the cargo transport out of Sydney Harbour, and it's a network of railway lines that bring produce and wool and wheat to the the terminals, and also the wharves that are marked for use by certain shipping companies.
And features on maps that sadly no longer exist.
Yeah, well, we've got one map that is interesting that shows Garden Island as an island before it was reclaimed and joined to the mainland.
And buildings too, in terms of grand buildings that no longer exist.
Yes, there's one or two of the maps show the proliferation of theatres in Sydney, which were quite grand buildings in their own right. The big department store of Anthony Hordens, which is no longer there. They tell us a lot about the memory of Sydney.
And the Garden Palace?
The Garden Palace is another one that was documented in some of the bird's eye views. And they're great because the building burnt down and they give a representation of that in the landscape.
The techniques, if you like, and the technology involved with doing maps these days has evolved enormously, hasn't it?
Oh, it has. Just in the City of Sydney, for instance, there are some staff who did their training as cartographic skill-based map making. They have really been replaced by spatial mapping experts who sit at computers and use data to create maps that we use today.
Sort of a long way down the track with Sydney, but we're still mapping it.
Well, I think it's interesting that on your device you're charting the progress of your Uber car, your food delivery. Maps still have huge currency today.